So when it comes to the Hammond organ in jazz, there are a couple of like names that are sort of really synonymous with the instrument. There's Jimmy Smith, of course, Dr. Lonnie Smith, Brother Jack McDuff, Barbara Dennerlein is a great European organist that I love. But the last 40 years has really been all about Joey Defrancesco, sort of famously played with the Miles Davis Band. Now, as I record this, he passed away in the last couple of days, so 51. So very, very much on the younger side of what you expect. This is not an obituary. I don't really go in for that. I don't think I can add anything that hasn't been said elsewhere by plenty of other people. So let's not focus on that too much. There's a lot of weird videos that get put out when someone dies, and I don't really want to be part of it. And yet, here I am. No, today I want to play you a tune from one of his more recent albums. It was actually on my list. I think it was about 4 down from the top of like songs to play for you anyway. So I just thought, bugger it, let's bring it up. Yeah, this is just a shot of that video that it's around on YouTube of Joey playing in the Miles Davis Band on guitar, and it's awesome. So Miles got Joey to play with him when Joey was, I think he was 17 or something like that. I'll tell you more about that because the song that we listened to is famously about the sort of the moment that Miles met Joey. Joey was famously schoolmates with Christian McBride, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Questlove, among others, at the school that I can't remember the name of, but it was a creative arts school. His dad was a organist, like a jazz organist. So Joey grows up with an organ in the house, with a piano in the house, and he becomes an absolute monster at the instrument as a result. His grandfather as well, Joseph Defrancesco, also a saxophonist, played in swing bands and stuff in the 1930s. So he got a record deal super, super quickly before any of his schoolmates, including Christian McBride, Kurt Rosenwinkel. These are a couple of those early albums. Reboppin' is an awesome album. I mean, most of Joey's music is really solid, but those covers are just... I really like those covers. We are, though, going to be listening to a song of Trip Mode, which is an album that he put out in 2015. Joey did some like really cool stuff later in his career, sort of like did some sort of cosmic stuff. He teamed up with Pharoah Sanders at one point. There's some it was Pharoah Sanders, right? Give me a sec on that one. But yeah, really interesting stuff. He got out of just doing the Joey Defrancesco, Pharoah Sanders. Yeah, it was Pharoah Sanders that he teamed up with. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so he got out of sort of the organ trio sound, which is, of course, very much associated with that kind of soul jazz, organ, guitar, drums thing. But fundamentally, that's the core of any organ band, right? And so there's a bit of that on this album. But so this album's kind of like a nice collection of sort of traditional songs that they're all originals, but that definitely like represent the sort of the range of what Joey would do on a gig. Core band is Jason Brown on the drums, Joey DeFrancesco there in the middle, and then Dan Wilson on guitar, which is they're a really, really good band, and he played with them. I think they're all Philly musicians, and they just sort of, that was his sort of key lineup for about 10 years. We've also got Mike Boone on the bass on this particular track. So if you don't know the Hammond organ very well, like that, you often play the bass on the organ itself, either on the foot pedals or just in the left hand. So you don't always have a bass player in like an organ trio, but in this particular track, we do. We've got Mike Boone. So I want to... We'll get to that in a second. I want to, before we play the track, I want to play you the video that it relates to. The track is called What's Your Organ Player's Name? And it refers to this moment that you've probably seen, but I'll play it for you now. In fact, I'll just play it on soft. It's this moment where Miles comes on this sort of local Philly TV show, and there's a band playing, and Joey DeFrancesco's in it. Christian McBride's on bass, and this trumpet is supposed to be sort of the main band leader, and Miles completely ignores him. So let's just jump ahead. That's the volume. There we go. Labba-dabba-dabba. Yeah, so he asked him a question. I'm talking about an Iwi, I think it is. There it is.
The organ player here? Let's actually take a minute and meet the band. I thank you very much. We got
Sorry, buddy.
Defrancesco on keyboards. Hi, Joey.
Joey Defrancesco, but yes.
I grew up with
And then that's Christian McBride having a chat about it for NPR. Anyway, point is, if you haven't seen that, that was the moment. That was the sort of that famous moment where Miles watched this band on telly that was supposed to be about this trumpeter, and he's like, "Bugger the trumpeter, who's the organ player?" And so then Joey plays with Miles. About 4 months later, he starts touring with him, and then he just goes on and does his own thing and makes a bunch of incredibly good music. So let's get back to this tune. I think the key thing to listen to for this track is that this is like it's all Miles. It's so Miles. So this track, it finishes this album. What Your Organ Player's Name is the name of the song, and it's kind of like I think a tribute. I couldn't find a ton of information or like interviews that Joey did about this album specifically, but that's okay. I think you'll listen to it and you'll be like, yeah, I get it. It is that circa 1980s, which is the time that Joey was playing with Miles. It's got that kind of Miles funk thing all over it. Joey, I didn't even talk about this. Joey's like a really good trumpeter as well. Sorry, you probably know who he is, but if you don't, like, he's a fantastic trumpeter. He picked it up in about 1989, 1990, inspired by Miles, and so a lot of his trumpet playing is sort of comes from the time he was with Miles. He also played saxophone, but one of the things he did live is he would play trumpet and he'd play organ, and often he'd sort of do both together. He'd play bass on the organ and play trumpet, or he'd play trumpet and then sort of like he'd do like a back and forth. Anyway, he does that in this. That's one of my list. One of my things on the list. So he does a call and response thing with himself. I'm pretty sure he does it just through tracking and overdubbing on this particular tune, on this particular album, but he would do this live as well. So it's a nice trick, but you know, it's also very good because he's exceptionally good. Joey also does the other keyboard tracks, so I think there's a clavie and a rose on this track that Joey laid down himself. So I imagine the way they probably recorded this was he probably did a live set with the band and played trumpet or maybe one of the keys instruments and then overdubbed the trumpet and then probably overdubbed the organ after overdubbing the other keys as well. I don't know, something like that. It would have got there. Anyway, so there's a few things to look for. The call and response is pretty cool. You'll hear it. I've got notes as we actually play the track. So let's do it. I forgot to do this last video. Leave a comment in the comments, like and subscribe and stuff like that. What can we say? What's your favorite Joey Defrancesco track? No, he played too many originals for that to be. Let's go with like, who's your favorite who's some other like, people who played multiple instruments? Let's go with that. Chuck that in the comments. All right, let's hear this tune then, shall we? Where is my player? Okay, so it's about 7 minutes long. Ends the album, trip mode. It's really good. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Let's start that from the very beginning. That's such a hip tune, eh? All right, there we go. What's Your Organ Player's Name by Joey Defrancesco from Trip Mode, 2015. Just to that point that I made earlier about sort of the back and forth between Joey and Joey. Part of the reason I feel like he's done the trumpet and then he's gone through with the organ is just because the trumpet doesn't really respond to the organ much, but the organ very much responds to the trumpet. So his trumpet line will go, and then he'll play something like that. So I'm thinking that probably a version of the song was laid down with him playing one of the keyboard parts, so that the whole sort of rhythm could be in maybe the Rhodes, because it seems to be more sort of bass line. And then he's probably gone over with the clavie, and then done the rest. Or maybe the clavie comes in last. It's one of those, one version of that probably. Hip tune. So, I guess it was good to finally get around to doing a Joey DeFrancesco song. Kind of a bummer that it happened when he died. That really sucks. Just to, reflect on that. If you want to check out more Joey, if you are new to his music, there's a couple of like classics on YouTube. I think that version of Sunny, everyone loves that version of Sunny. I remember watching that when I was pretty young, actually, and I'm just like, this is the hippest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's him, Pat Martino, who was also a Philadelphia musician, and then John Schofield playing at Umbria Jazz Festival. And it's pretty hip. It's pretty good. And then there's also a studio jams that I quite like. He plays, I think it's with I think Larry Carlton's on that video. It's Misty. So Misty, obviously, like traditionally a ballad, but Groove Holmes did a version of it. Another organist back in like the 60s as a upbeat kind of funk, which is more reminiscent of soul jazz and kind of what people associate with the organ. And there's a version of one of the studio jams with Joey playing Misty, and it's awesome. So lots of catching up to do if you are not a Joey DeFrancesco fan yourself. So hopefully I've made one of you. Until next time, I will catch ya.